Imagine your brain isn't just, this squishy computer in your skull. Imagine it's a piece of hardware,
Okay, like what kind of hardware?
specifically a biological transistor.
A biological transistor, that's a very mechanical way to look at consciousness.
It is, right. But this transistor, its whole job is to parse information between two completely different states of being.
Okay.
On one side, you've got the physical world. Your coffee cup, the chair you're sitting in, gravity, solid stuff,
And on the other side?
something,
Oh.
something more fundamental. And that's really the hinge of what we're unpacking today, isn't it?
It is. We're looking at this idea that humans are hybrid creatures, part physical, particle, and part wave.
And this is where it gets really mind-bending. The source material we're digging into today suggests that when you're awake, doing your job, paying your bills, all of that, you're actually at your most limited.
You're fixed in space-time, pinned down.
Exactly. But when you go to sleep, that's when you're truly awake. That's when you're free to travel as a wave.
It completely inverts the normal definition of consciousness. We think of sleep as powering down. This theory says sleep is when we power up.
And just to be clear, this isn't some abstract physics lecture. This is all coming from a very specific narrative context.
Right. We are diving into Chapter 11 of the story Range Error from the channel J.M. Britain.
And our mission for this deep dive is, well, it's pretty specific. We're not just recapping a story about a protagonist named Grace.
No, we're looking at how she uses this incredible blend of high-level quantum physics on one hand.
And surprisingly, literary analysis of Roald Dahl on the other.
It seems like a strange pairing, quantum tunneling and James and the Giant Peach. But for Grace, they are both fundamentally survival tools.
So let's set the scene a little. The story takes place in a period they call the Inter-Era, which sounds like a post-conflict times now.
That's right. The source says Inter brought peace, it ended a civil war. So on the macro level, society is stable, the fighting's over.
And Grace's family, they seem to be doing okay. They have a house in a nice area called The First. Her dad has a good job.
On the surface, everything looks fine.
But behind closed doors, it is a very different story. The war for the country might be over, but for Grace, it's still raging in her own home.
And she's trying to navigate this with help from two, well, mysterious figures. 87 and Mobius.
We'll get to who or what they are, but first let's go back to that biological transistor idea. Because for Grace, this isn't a metaphor. She sees living things as actual hybrids.
She does. The text says she views us as interacting in both physical and non-physical realms. The transistor, her mind uses matter, synapses, to let her transition from being a bond particle to being a wave.
Let's stick with that term bond particle. It sounds so restrictive.
It is meant to. In physics, a particle has a location, it has mass, it's affected by gravity.
It's stuck.
Right. And Grace believes that being awake, in our sense of the word, means being attached to these particles that distort space-time. You're fixed in one position, defined by your limits.
Which is why she finds this so ironic. We think of being awake as being free, right? You go where you want. But she thinks that's the illusion.
The real freedom comes when you escape those bond particles during sleep. She calls it traveling along the lattice of Mobius.
You're more awake then because you aren't bound by the physical laws governing your body.
It's the difference between, say, walking across a map versus just flying over it. As a particle, you have to deal with every bump in the road.
But as a wave, you just go.
Hmm.
Now, you might be listening and thinking, okay, this kid is really into physics. Maybe she just has a wild imagination.
But the source makes a point here that I think it's just heartbreakingly important. She's not doing this just to be clever.
No, she's doing it because the alternative is terrifying.
Exactly. The text says that the idea of all this coming from her own head seemed ridiculous, but the alternative was far more unnerving.
If it's all just her imagination, then she's completely alone in her trauma.
So she clings to these huge, complex theories, entanglement, general relativity, as and the text calls it this, a saving grace.
It's a coping mechanism, a brilliant intellectual shield against a reality that is just unbearable.
And when you see her home life, you get why she needs that shield.
Yeah. This brings us to that darkness at home. You have this massive contrast. The Inter-Era brings peace to the nation. Her dad's job gives them a nice house. But he's working all the time. He's never there.
Which leaves Grace and her brother, Resnick, alone with their mother, Erin.
And Erin is. Wow, she is quite a character.
The description of her is so vivid. She's not some cackling monster. She's described as incredibly beautiful, exotic face, long dark hair.
But she represents this kind of dark authority,
Hmm.
and the source uses a phrase that I think just nails the nuance of this kind of abuse.
I know the one you mean.
She was a warning about self-proclaimed moral virtue, victimhood, and the nature of power.
That combination is just, it's a poison.
It's a psychological trap, isn't it? If someone is both the most virtuous person in the room and also the biggest victim.
You can't touch them. They're unassailable. How can you criticize a good person? And how can you fight back against a victim?
And for Grace, that trap is physical too. The abuse is described in really stark terms, being thrown against walls.
But the part that really stood out was the isolation. Being locked in dark rooms for hours during the day.
That sensory deprivation seems key. She has this nightmare that illustrates it so well.
Yeah, the one where the inside of her face is burning hot and cold at the same time, and she's lost her sense of smell.
It's this total visceral disconnect from her own senses. Her brain is panicking because it's cut off from the world.
Exactly. And in those moments of isolation, locked in a room, maybe peering through a crack in the curtains, that's when the transistor kicks in.
She uses it to dive into glorious pools of imagination. She transports herself.
She literally travels to foreign shores, and one of her main sanctuaries is a place called Playmont Beach on Jersey Island. This is Mobius.
And this setting is so important. The source makes a point of saying that in her vision, the sands are golden, the water is crystal clear.
But there's this dark footnote to it.
Yeah. This is a memory of a time before things had dried up and waters became acidic.
So even her sanctuary is haunted by a loss. It represents a lost harmony of normality. She's escaping to a time when the world wasn't broken.
And she's there at a cafe with her mysterious friend 87. There's cake, peppermint tea. It's safe,
Yeah.
civilized.
And this is where the whole thing takes a turn that I just found fascinating.
Me too. They're sitting there eating imaginary cake, and they start deconstructing Roald Dahl.
Of all things,
Yeah.
specifically James and the Giant Peach, you go from quantum mechanics straight to a children's book.
But 87 treats this book like it's a top-secret intelligence file.
He does, and this is the part that, it really blew my mind, the rhinoceros theory.
I read that book a dozen times as a kid. Giant Peach, talking bugs, evil ants. Seems
Yeah.
straightforward.
Okay, so quick refresher for everyone. In the book, James's parents are eaten by a rhinoceros that escapes from the London Zoo. It's like the first page.
Right. It always seemed like just a random, absurd, dark comedy way to get the parents out of the picture so the story can start.
Then a rhino ate them. The end. But 87 says, no, it is not random at all.
So what is it then?
87 claims the rhinoceros is a symbol. It represents kindness, gentleness, tolerance, and get this, the need to exercise powers of perception.
Wait, what? How is a man eating rhino a symbol of tolerance? It ate them.
That's the beautiful irony of it.
So their death was caused by being caught off guard. Wow. That reframes the entire book. And Grace, she immediately connects this to her own mother, Erin.
She does. She sees her mother proclaiming all these virtues, but acting with such cruelty, and she wonders if her mom is like the rhino, that maybe her mother is constantly panicked or out of her element, and that recontextualizes the mother for Grace. She's no longer this all-powerful tyrant. She's someone who is deeply, deeply afraid.
It's Grace using the monster in the book to try and understand the monster in her house. But they don't stop there, do they? They analyze the magic worms, too.
Right, the magic green crystals. 87's take on them is fascinating. He says they represent giving a voice to things without a voice.
The insects.
Exactly. The insects are usually pests, right?
Yeah.
Invisible. But the magic makes them big, gives them personalities, gives them speech.
And then the mechanical shark. I have to admit, I completely forgot there was a mechanical shark.
It's a key scene, but 87 reads it through this incredibly modern lens. He sees it as a symbol of autonomous technology, AI.
In a book from the 1960s.
That's his interpretation, yeah. A soulless beast rising from the chaotic depths of the ocean. Chaos engineered.
And James and the Indians have to fight it off.
Right. And the key for Grace is that James is willing to sacrifice himself to save his friends, these creatures that most people would just squash without a thought.
So the answer to the cold mechanical threat is humanity, empathy, self-sacrifice.
Exactly. What 87 is teaching Grace is that Dahl wasn't just writing funny stories for kids. He was writing survival guides.
Which brings us to this idea of Dahl as the spy teacher.
And this part is factually true, which makes it even better. Roald Dahl was an intelligence officer.
I always forget that. But it explains so much about his work, doesn't it?
It really does. 87 says Dahl lived in a world unseen by most. He saw the secrets, the propaganda, the way adults manipulated reality.
And he distilled those truths into his fiction. He was smuggling spycraft to children.
Lessons about intuition and perception. He was teaching kids that things are seldom as they seem, that adults can't always be trusted, and that you have to pay attention to words because they can be deceiving.
That's exactly what Grace needs to hear. Her mother uses words to deceive. She uses her virtue to deceive. Grace needs to learn how to see past that.
They even touch on the twits.
Oh, the nasty couple who play horrible pranks on each other. The glass eye in the beer, the frog in the bed.
But 87 reframes it as a lesson in psychological warfare and incremental changes.
How so?
He uses the example of Mr. Twit adding a tiny piece of wood to Mrs. Twit's cane every day so she thinks she's shrinking.
That's pure gaslighting,
Ow.
making her doubt her own reality.
Exactly. And 87 says it shows how mind games can steer entire populations. With enough subtle pressure, you can turn a tyrant puppeteer into a twit.
So all of this, Grace is building this incredible internal fortress. She has quantum physics to explain her own consciousness and give her freedom.
And she has literary analysis to decode the behavior of the tyrant in her life.
It's this synthesis of hard science and art. And that's what's so compelling. He argues you need both. You need the physics to understand the particles, the walls of the room.
We need the stories to understand the who and the why.
And she's getting this all from 87, who we still don't really know who or what he is.
The source is very ambiguous. Grace suspects there's more to both 87 and Mobius than ego and daydreams, but she pushes that thought away.
Why?
Because sanity demanded she not entertain that idea often.
It's a paradox. If she admits he could be real, she might be crazy. But if she decides he's fake, she loses her only ally.
She's on a tightrope. But if we go back to her original theory, the biological transistor,
You think she's tuning into something?
it's a possibility, right? If her brain is a receiver, maybe 87 isn't an invention. Maybe he's a signal she's finally picking up because she's desperate enough to tune the dial that far.
That gives me chills. Because it would validate her entire worldview. If she's a wave, maybe she's interacting with other waves.
And that validation is everything. It helps her understand a world where information was forever at odds with observable fact. And I mean, isn't that a feeling we can all relate to sometimes?
Oh, absolutely. Being told one thing but seeing something completely different. That's the definition of what her mother is doing to her.
And Dahl's stories are the perfect antidote to that. They teach you to trust your gut, to look at the rhino and see the irony, to realize that just because an adult says something doesn't make it true.
It's so empowering. It shifts her from being a victim into being an observer, a scientist studying her own life.
And that shift in perspective is everything. Remember the physics. As a fixed particle, she's limited. But when she shifts her perspective through sleep or through a story, she becomes a wave. She becomes fluid, adaptable.
She can survive.
Oh.
So what's the takeaway for us, for you listening? Most of us, hopefully, aren't in a situation that dire.
I think the lesson is about the utility of imagination. We tend to dismiss it as just escapism. Get your head out of the clouds.
Right. Something you do to avoid reality.
But this story suggests imagination is actually a training ground, a flight simulator for life.
It's where you practice perception, where you learn to spot the rhinos and the mechanical sharks in your own world before they get you.
When Grace goes to Mobius, she isn't running away from reality. She's going there to sharpen the tools she needs to survive it.
That is a really powerful reframing.
Yeah.
You're not wasting time reading fiction or daydreaming. You're calibrating your biological transistor.
You're learning how to parse the signal from the noise. And in a world that feels increasingly at odds with observable fact, that skill is everything.
And sometimes your filter is quantum mechanics.
And sometimes it's a giant peach, whatever works.
Okay, we have covered a lot of ground, from quantum theory to the Jersey Shore to the inside of a peach.
It's a wide range for sure.
But it all connects. It's all about how we process the world.
And how we survive it.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one last thought, building on what we've discussed.
Okay.
We talked about 87's theory, that the rhinoceros wasn't a monster. It was a symbol of obvious truth that the parents were too blind to see.
It raises a pretty uncomfortable question, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
If 87 is right, and if we are all more asleep when we are awake, because we get locked into one rigid perspective,
Yeah.
What is the rhinoceros standing right behind you?
What is that obvious truth, that symbol of reality that's looming over your shoulder right now that you're just too awake, too busy, too focused to see?
Is it a relationship you're ignoring? A truth about yourself you don't want to face? Or is it just that you've been acting like a bond particle when you really need to be a wave?
And the real question is, are you brave enough to close your eyes, become a wave, and finally let yourself see it?
Something to think about tonight. Thanks for diving deep with us.
See you on the lattice.